Hi, my name is Brent Satoris. I'm here with Search Engine Journal at Pubcon Las Vegas. I'm here today with Enge from Stone Temple Consulting. And Eric has been around our industry for a very, very long time, very respected, and has a lot of experience around signals and authority signals. And recently there's been a ton of conversation around social signals. And we were just talking off camera a little bit that, you know, nobody's really denying the fact that that's where we're going. Social signals it's a more real recommendation. It's definitely one of the things I was saying the other day is before social signals, we were actually missing 90% of all signals because there was no way for people to give the recommendation online.
Right.
You know, the majority of people don't have the capability to go write an article or to have it published or have that be an influence. So with social signals and with a lot of the studies you've been looking at recently, what is your feeling on the timeline for social signals to become more relevant as far as a true ranking factor? Do you feel it is today and they're just, it's a conversation point, or do you feel like we're really close to that? What's your opinion on social signals as a ranking factor and how close it is to becoming a big significant part of that?
So let me start with today, and then we can try to map a timeline from there.
Sure.
We actually just recently did a study, we published it about a month ago, on Google Plus shares and the impact on SEO. And we took the trouble to create web pages that had no links, no Google Analytics, no social sharing code in it. And then we had people do shares of that. So the only signal that Google had to recognize the existence of that page and decide how to value it was a Google Plus share.
Perfect.
Okay, not a +1 without any associated commentary. So, and the Googlebot was at the page in 6 minutes. So for discovery, that ship has sailed. That's already happening.
Nice.
Okay. The pages did get indexed. Interestingly enough, it took 10 days to get indexed in this particular study.
How many pages, by the way?
We did this across 3 different domains, 2 pages on each domain.
Okay.
One which we called our test page, and one was a baseline page. I'll explain why that was in a moment. But they did get indexed, and even at the time it got indexed, we kept checking whether links had materialized to the pages. Nothing had showed up. Okay. And then we waited about another 10 days before we sent a second burst of shares to the page. And the reason why we did that is while we had some initial rankings after initial indexation, that could be because of the authority of the domain and not the share. So we wanted to take that out of the factor, and we sent out as a factor, and we sent another burst, 25 or more additional shares to each of the pages, each of the test pages. Basically, we eventually saw some ranking change. It was like 20 days out, and it was already when there was a lot of chatter about other things going on in Google right at the same time. And so that by itself was not conclusive, but layer on top of that, the pages that I call the baseline pages only get the initial burst of shares and did not get a second burst of shares. And they also showed ranking movement not dissimilar to what you saw on the test pages.
Interesting.
So the working conclusion of this particular study was that we saw discovery, big time. Great way to discover content. You'll discover it faster this way by any other means you can do. Google, but if you want to get your content discovered, go get some great links. Great idea, but it'll happen faster with a share.
Nice, that's very interesting.
Indexation definitely appeared to happen. Ranking, not so much. Okay, that's today.
Sure.
Okay, but the other thing to know is that when you do a Google Plus share and you use the link button in the share as opposed to just stuffing it in the text window, the code for that link is not no followed.
Interesting.
That's a do follow link, right? And also of significance is
in all cases, that's a do follow link?
It is a do follow link.
You haven't seen any internal filtering or from them at all?
Not in terms of the source code. The source code just shows that it's, it doesn't have a no follow on it. Whether they do some other filtering is a whole other equation, right? But I do think that, well, the other thing I wanted to mention is not only that, they actually changed the way the no follow architecture worked in Google Plus at one point. So that indicates to me that they've kind of deliberately sculpted how it flows. there has to be a reason for that.
Sure, makes sense.
Right? They didn't do that just for fun or to give SEO something to talk about. Although I'm sure they like to give SEO something to talk about.
Some of the response that we've heard from, I won't, individuals, I'll say from Google, some of the response that we've heard from Google is that, well, you can't, correlate that just because you're seeing social signals that it means that it's part of the ranking reality of it, right? But what they say is, as well as they go on further to say that if it's got a lot of good social signals, then it probably has a lot of other good quality factors as well. But to me, that just makes me think that if you're basically saying that anything that has a lot of social signals probably has a lot of other quality factors as well, aren't you basically saying that you think that it's a really good signal for a quality site?
Well, no matter how you slice it, right? In fact, I did a Hangout on Air event with Rand Fishkin last Thursday, and we talked about correlation studies. And the correlation studies actually are very valuable. They tell you that people who do these kinds of things tend to do well. It doesn't mean that this thing caused that thing, right? And I always give the example that there's a strong correlation between drowning deaths and ice cream consumption, because they both happen when it's hot out.
Sure.
The more interesting example I give is there's also a strong correlation between people who say they don't like horseradish and people who say they have a below average libido. Okay, I can't figure out how to draw why that, but it's true. It's actually a true correlation. The point is that correlation doesn't equal causation. We've had that conversation, But what we did in our studies, we went right at measuring causation.
Sure.
Right? But to me, at the end of all this, right, there's a reason why they're letting PageRank flow in certain aspects of the Google Plus architecture. And I want to back up and think a little bit about, all right, in the future, why is it or how is it that this will be used? We need to remember, and you actually said it yourself in your opening preamble, a lot of people can't do a blog post or they don't have a website. So people who own a website, people who could implement a link, have a capital investment and a brand to protect. In a social media situation, a share of a link or a +1 or something like that, here today, gone 10 minutes later, 20 minutes later. It's not that it's unimportant. I actually believe it is important.
I as well.
But they're not going to weight it as the same way they do a link.
Yeah, but you get so many more. That's the thing.
Well,
it's the volume, right? The volume
totally agree.
is really where it comes into play. Volume and the diversity, and that's where I think the big challenge going forward is the correlation between the social signals. Like, how do you figure out what pattern of social signals actually equates to a higher level of quality versus a lower level of quality? And positive and negative, is going to be another thing. And who, exactly, right? And that's where they've pushed a lot for the author ranks and a lot of the connectivity and stuff like that. Definitely. So going forward, for people that are marketing, right? I mean, that's what we're, in the business of. There's always a sense of saying, okay, well, that information is good, but how do I apply that? What should I do with that knowledge? What would you say the average person right now running a marketing company or being an SEO or being just a website owner, what would be some of the areas that they should focus on that will really have an effect for them over the next year or two? Should they get more, a lot more signals, or should they be focusing on quality signals? Should they be doing a little bit of both? Like, what do you think, if you would suggest something, would be what you would suggest to the average person with social signals in mind?
Not a simple question.
At all. I don't ask you simple questions.
Yes, but it's a fun question. I mean, look, what you can't dispute, and you actually said this as well, is that whatever signal Google is currently using to rank things, if you're doing things on social media where you're getting lots of engagement and lots of interaction, you're probably also getting lots of links. But let's take that one step further. When you have a powerful social media channel under your own control, you have a good Facebook account, you have a good Twitter account, you have a good Google Plus account, whatever it is, Pinterest, Instagram, I don't care. And you share good content on that, and lots of engagement happens with that, you are also going to get links as a result of that. So whatever signal Google is using, if you've built a powerful social channel, right, then it's like your own PR channel under your own control, right? So you have a mechanism which gives you a tremendous amount of power in driving, engagement on the social media site, awesome by itself, but it will generate the SEO signals that everybody wants out of all this. It just might not be right now that the share itself is the signal.
Yeah.
But it doesn't actually matter that much.
One thing I've kind of thought about is, you know how we used to use link bait. We would mask, link building within like a viral link explosion. Like we would mask a lot of things. Another thing I think is very interesting right now is the concept of saying, hey, I'm getting a lot of social signals. Should I go out and, message or target influencers to add in a few influential social signals as well to really empower that movement, to validate that, hey, there's a spike in conversation or a spike in interactivity around my content. Let me get a couple influencers as well to really participate in that, to validate that it's not only just a bunch of people, but it's a good variety of people.
Well, the authority of the influencer is a big deal. There's no question about it. And it matters to Google more who shares it.
Sure.
Rather than the volume of people who share it. The volume can be bought.
Yeah.
Right? Getting Danny Sullivan to share something of yours, that can't be bought.
Exactly.
Right? And that really matters a big deal. So this whole notion of building relationships with influencers is a big deal. So I'm going to give you a 2-bullet point answer to what people should do. Back to your original question.
Perfect.
Okay. Build the relationships with influencers, and make sure whatever you're doing on social is driving engagement.
Exactly.
The numbers of people following you or your fans or friends or whatever doesn't matter at all. What matters is how much interaction is happening with your stuff.
In fact, that's a funny last bullet, because that's one of the things I was saying the other day to somebody. They asked me on a call, they said, well, all these things that have changed with the Facebook algorithm, all these things that are changing with all of these algorithms, what is it exactly that makes things rank? I said, look, you can get as complicated as you want with this, but it really comes down to only one thing and one thing only, an interaction. Everything drives off of interaction. Everything comes from interaction. Right. It's the only thing you really need to focus on in social today, is making sure you have quality and interaction.
Right, and that interaction, by the way, when you're trying to build those relationships with the influencers, they respect the interaction. It makes doing that part, bullet point 1, is made easier by bullet point 2.
Exactly, right. Well, Eric, it's an absolute pleasure. If anybody wanted to get in touch with you, if they wanted to get in touch with your company, ask you further questions, pick your mind, hire you to work with them, where would they reach you at?
So the website's stonetemple.com. My Twitter handle's @stonetemple. Very active also on Google+, plus Eric Enge. And, email me, enge@stonetemple.com.
Perfect, Eric. Thanks again. I really appreciate it.
All right, thanks, Brent.